Hey everyone, we're finally here doing the choke tube breakdown video that I promised everybody that I would do in hopes that it's going to give a lot of people a better understanding of what's in your barrel. So let's get started. First things, what is a choke tube? Choke tube is a piece of metal that's inside the end of your barrel that's going to determine how your shot, how the projectiles react, how they expand after they leave the barrel, and at what rates they do so. Majority of which in your modern day shotguns are going to be removable. They'll just screw out one way or the other. On some older shotguns, those are going to be fixed, meaning nothing comes out, and that choke, that constriction is what it is, and it's not changeable. If you see me glancing down here at the computer from time to time throughout this video, all I'm doing is checking notes. I have a bunch of talking points to make sure I don't miss anything and that I answer all questions I can completely and entirely. A choke, the restriction can vary extremely or just a little bit from the actual original bore size of your shotgun. Now, they come in a bunch of different shapes or different sizes with different names, and it can be confusing to a lot of people, which I feel is where most people have their questions and they don't understand what it's doing or what it is. So first one, most common one's going to be cylinder. Then there's going to be improved cylinder. You have light modified, modified, improved modified. Then you have your full and your extra full. In some instances, on fixed bore shotguns, you'll see things called a negative bore, and I'll also touch on that here in a second. Now, what do all these terms mean in relation to what is this choke doing to my spread or my pattern as it comes out? Your negative bore, it's instead of a constriction, instead of getting tighter, it's almost like a flared bore. It opens up more than the inner diameter of the actual barrel. Those are good within 20 yards or less. Nothing beyond that. It's a very wide open spread. You have your cylinder, which is, it doesn't change the actual, it doesn't constrict at all, it doesn't flare, and it's the actual diameter of the bore of your shotgun. That's good between 20 and 25 yards, or let's say effectively. You've then got your improved cylinder, which is just slightly more constricted than your cylinder bore. That's good between 25 to 30 yards. You've got light modified, which is just a little bit more open than modified. And that's going to be good 27 to 32 yards roughly. You have your modified, 30 to 35 yards. That's the go-to for many people. Improved modified, a little bit more constricted. It's going to be good for 32 all the way up to 40 yards. And then you've got your full, 40 to 50 yards. It's pretty tight pattern. Extra full, it can be, it's a little uncommon to see those, but the manufacturers do make those, mostly aftermarket. Those are for your long pokes, 50 yards or more. I've seen people do it. It's pretty impressive, but you've got to be comfortable with that kind of distance. The figures, those ranges that I was listing, those are going to be based on just rough approximations based on what would produce a 40-inch circular pattern within those ranges. Now, there's a range because every shotgun's a little bit different. Different loads, are going to have an effect on when that circle is achieved within that range. So those ranges are a good guesstimation or approximation to go by when selecting a choke. The only way to effectively understand exactly what your choke is doing in your shotgun with your load, go test it on paper, go pattern that thing. It's the only way you're going to actually be 100% as to is it doing exactly what you need it to do. Or you can leave it to those approximations. It's entirely up to you. Going into the anatomy of a choke tube, so you've got, let's see, I want to be clear. You've got your bore, which is going to be the inner diameter of your barrel leading up to this. So that's going to automatically start at the bore of your shotgun. This section here on this choke, there's threads here from when it screws in. It can vary a little bit depending on your shotgun manufacturer. But this is called the conical section, this portion here. That's the point where it actually constricts and it started to tighten, that compress those BBs, the pellets, projectiles, into the new bore, or the constriction that you want to see. The part beyond there is going to be what's called your parallel section, and now that's going to be the actual inner diameter of what you're trying to achieve. This one here, 0.7 inches. This can be an improved modified here. You're going to see a lot of chokes. Going to have on the aftermarket ones are going to be a little bit more extended. They're going to protrude past the muzzle of your shotgun. The longer parallel section you'll see with a lot of aftermarket chokes, generally 25 to 30% longer than a flush or factory choke, does have its benefits as far as patterning consistency. That being said, you don't want to go this far out, a couple of inches on a parallel section. That defeats the purpose and the entire science behind how these things perform and the pattern consistency that they produce. You can be counterproductive if it goes too long. How it all comes together, if you're looking at the picture here now, the shot travels down the barrel, constricts upon entering the conical section, and maintains a new constriction before leaving the parallel section at the muzzle. Now this balance in gradual conical and extended parallel sections will set aftermarket chokes apart in regards to its overall performance. Now I see that there's a lot of options out there. If you pick up, say, a Carlson's catalog or their product catalog, you're going to see a ton. It's going to be letters and numbers and things that a lot of people just don't understand. What's the purpose in all these different sizes and constrictions and whatnot? Now, there's some chokes out there that are going to be designed specifically to perform with a specific load. Like their turkey chokes is very common. They've got their new tungsten steel shot TSS chokes. Insane figures as far as shots on target at great distances with that. Those are going to be specific to that load. Other than that, you've got multiple chokes. It's going to be user preference, but you have to determine your comfort level as a shooter. Do you shoot close, mid-range, or long range? You have to get out there and snipe those birds or those clay pigeons. Your terrain can also differ. Are trees? Is your spread hunting over decoys? Is that making you hunt further or closer or further from you? Where are those birds expected to be based on your terrain or your spread? Take those things into consideration when selecting your choke. Your kill hole over your spread can be sometimes on the backside. It might be up towards the shore where you're at. Being able to judge that distance is going to make you more effective as a shooter, because now you're able to determine which choke is going to put the perfect amount of BBs inside that pattern at that given distance. Steel reacts differently than lead when coming through a choke or exiting a choke. You're going to pattern completely different. If you have a modified choke, which is very common again for most hunters, this is the reason why. With lead, it's modified. You're going to get that specific distance, that specific size pattern. With steel, steel's going to hold tighter, longer, give it in that same choke. If you're shooting waterfowl with a steel choke, or with steel through that modified choke, you're going to be able to get away with that modified. It's going to react as if it's a full. So just keep that in mind when picking your choke too. Now, big question out there, well, how do I determine which choke and which shot or which load I'm running? There's a lot to go over with that, a lot to keep in mind. Big thing out there, there's a myth that the faster those projectiles go, the quicker your bird's going to die, the easier it's going to die. That's not necessarily true. What you're going to be looking for is pattern density, and that's the main thing to focus on. And that's why there's so much science behind aftermarket chokes. When your speed and your projectile increases and you're trying to feed it through a choke that's constricting it and pushing them all together. With lead, it's going to flex, it's going to deform, you're going to get pellet deformation when it's shoving all those things through there at speeds of 1,500 feet per second if you're shooting high brass or something. Pellet deformation is going to lead to flyers, the pellets going here and there and not staying where they're supposed to, which translates to when it reaches its targets, your pattern is no longer as dense as it should be. So with your pattern not being as dense as it's supposed to be or expected to be given that choke, slow it down. When you want those patterns denser and farther, no matter what choke you're running, density is key. Things to consider here when picking a choke. A choke's not going to make you a better shooter. When people miss their targets with a shotgun, they're generally missing by feet, not inches. When inches is what you're really going to gain with changing out a choke. So if you feel like everything you're doing right is right on the money, but your target, your bird, is just flying away unscathed, unhurt, undamaged, not even a chip off the clay pigeon, you're likely missing something within your fundamentals. So go back to those, focus on your feet, focus on how you're swinging through your target, go back to those and see if things improve. It's not always going to be something mechanical like your choke. Know your maximum effective range. If there's something that you're comfortable with when you're shooting, but maybe I personally don't like close-up shots. I can make them most of the time, but it's not my comfort zone. I like those longer pokes. I like getting out there with my full choke. If I'm running a spread that's going to be 30 to 40 feet, deep, or beyond me, in its size, I'm still going to stick with my full. Last season, I had a mallard decoy or mallard drake decoy in at first light, right at the front of my spread, right next to the shore. Hesitated for a second, and I'm like, that's a drake, it's a greenhead, and I sent it. I blew the back right out of him. Granted, he was dead before he smacked the water, but it made that bird really hard to clean. That pattern was so tight and so dense, I may as well have shot it with a cannon. Steel number 2 at about maybe 15 to 20 yards. It was a mess. So know your comfort zone, where you shoot, and choose your choke and then your shot accordingly. Are you shooting lead or steel? Keep that in mind. Again, lead's going to react differently than steel does going through any specific choke. Now, I don't shoot one specific choke for every bird, for every season. I have multiple. If I plan on shooting something real close, if I'm going to flush up quail, if I'm going to, it's starting to get later in the day for dove and I want to go walk the washes and kick them up because they're just not flying, I'll put in an improved cylinder just because I know my shot's going to be super, super close. Anything beyond that, I go into my improved modified, then I go into my extended steel waterfowl choke from Carlson's, and that's a full constriction. Again, like I said earlier, I like shooting longer distances. I'm super comfortable with that, and I kill a lot of birds that way. That's just me. Whatever works for you, do you. Kind of prime example with that. This past waterfowl season, duck season, last weekend out, I was hunting with a couple of buddies, and I noticed one of them was trying to take longer shots because some of the birds were decoying at the back of the spread. And his choke really wasn't allowing him to do that. The pattern was too large. There wasn't enough BBs or pellets in that spread at that distance. And I asked him what kind of gun he had. Turns out he could fit the same chokes I had. I had an extra one of these extended steel waterfowl chokes in a full constriction to try this out. Maybe 15 minutes later, I had a drake and hen mallard decoy again on the back of the spread. He sent it, put the drake down in his traps at almost 50 yards, and they were way in the back. The hen beelined out of there and he one-hitter quitted hers while she was dead before she hit the dirt at 60 to 70 yards. And that was with, I believe it was 4 shots. So it goes to show that a certain choke fit his shooting style that he was way more comfortable with than the one he was originally running, because he actually, I'm not sure he knew what was in his barrel and what it was doing. So started to give him a whole lot better understanding on how that worked, and he was in love with it. Like I said, I have the improved modified. Modified is going to be the happy medium I touched on earlier. That is good all around. People kill a lot of birds, upland birds with it, with lead shot, and it holds tighter and denser with steel shot during waterfowl season. So take that for what it is. It may work for you. It works for a lot of people, but it might not. Take into consideration how it is that you like to shoot and where your comfort is. So I told a lot of people we're going to do a little bit of questions and answers in this video. Some people submitted questions. I'm going to go over them now. I want to be as specific as I can with those answers to those questions, so people are 100% clear on things. First one is, some of the chokes that came with my gun are labeled not for steel. How can I tell what other chokes are safe for steel? Pretty simple. If your gun says not for steel or don't use with steel, don't. That's going to lead to somebody getting hurt, either catastrophic failure, severe damage to your choke, or your barrel, or all of the above. If it's a factory choke that doesn't say that, but some of them do, chances are that it is safe. Your more open chokes, sometimes the metal that it's made out of, they're not. The manufacturer doesn't want you to shoot steel out of it. It's just too hard of a metal. You go into your aftermarket chokes, majority of those are safe for steel. All of Carlson's will say in writing, right on there, what metals it can shoot through there. This one here, steel, lead, copper, or heavy shot. That means that every single one of Carlson's chokes can be shot with steel, but some series of their chokes do have speed restrictions on steel and shot size. When I go into my extended waterfowl steel choke, it's a full constriction. I can shoot up to BB size steel, up to 1,550 feet per second. I don't shoot that fast. It's just, again, with pattern density, I try to slow that thing down as much as I can. You go over to things like the Cremator series from Carlson's. Again, shoot steel through it. Even in a full constriction, you can shoot as fast as you want. There are no constrictions. The way that conical section is set up, the way it gradually steps down instead of smooth, allows you to shoot as fast as you like to. I know a lot of people that shoot super, super fast loads through these and keep very tight. It's an anomaly. I don't know how they do it. It's amazing. Next question. Can I shoot a slug through a choke without causing damage? Yes, you can, but be mindful. A rifled slug can only use it through a cylinder or improved cylinder choke. It's the same thing as if you were to buy a barrel that's specific for shooting slugs. That's going to be the constriction, because those are fixed choke. That's going to be the equivalent of what it is, improved or improved cylinder. The exception would be Sabot slugs, S-A-B-O-T. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I've never shot them myself. Only use a fully rifled slug barrel. Those are interchangeable barrels, available for a lot of manufacturers. Anything besides that, if you try to shoot through a different type of barrel or a tighter constriction, you're going to lead to extreme deformation in that massive object, that projectile, leading to catastrophic failure in your gun. Or best case scenario, extremely mangled projectile, but you lost all sorts of accuracy with it, and you're probably not going to hit your target at that point. So Sabot slugs, only through a fully rifled slug barrel. Why are some aftermarket chokes ported and others not? Think of it this way. When you put a muzzle brake on a rifle, that's to alleviate all that pressure coming back into your shoulder. Now, with a lot of goose loads or even some fast duck loads or turkey loads, you're running into a lot of gunpowder. That's a lot of power behind that, because generally those are trying to reach out and smack something and make sure you can put it down. It carries that energy all the way. That can hurt, especially if you're shooting waterfowl all day. It could take a toll on your shoulder. The porting is to disperse the gases as it leaves the barrel and the energy, and alleviate a lot of that stress on your shoulder. Got a Carlson's Turkey Choke here, and also the Cremator series. Both come available with ports. Just given what I shoot with those, yes, you want to stay back, on target. Get back on target as fast as you can for follow-up shots. Comes in very handy. The last question is, the chokes that came with my gun aren't labeled, and how can I tell which one is which? On most of your modern day shotguns, you're going to have hash marks on the business end, the front of your choke tube. And those hash marks, those little ticks, are going to determine or tell you what your constriction is on that given choke. One hash mark generally being full choke, the tighter constriction, all the way up to 5 hash marks is going to be your more open, like your cylinder or improved cylinder, and everything in between. Most shotguns should come with sort of a manual that should break down what those hash marks are. If you don't have those hash marks, your gun may be a little bit older, or it's not a common manufacturer. Pull the choke out of the gun, check from the middle to the back section of it. You may have rings that are engraved there. It's not the threads. There's actual rings that are engraved. Gauge it or count it just as you would a hash mark. It's going to be 1 for your full, all the way up to 4 and 5 for your bit more open constrictions. So if your gun doesn't have either of those, you got to go back to the manufacturer and determine that, or you're just going to have to eyeball it. If you're eyeballing it and it looks like that front wall at the muzzle is real thick, probably wouldn't shoot steel through it. I probably wouldn't shoot steel through any of those, only because that gun is probably a whole lot older. I wouldn't chance that metal being able to handle compressing a steel shot in that manner. Now, wrapping things up, be sure to determine your shooting style. It's easiest done with somebody behind you while you're shooting, telling you, hey, you shot that bird, you shot that clay when it was way out there. Dang, that was right up in your face, and you just cleaned it. You took it right down. Determine where you're comfortable and where you're taking most of your shots, and then get your choke. Or choose it, out of your factory chokes, whatever it may be. Don't do it the other way. Don't try to sit there and mix chokes and just try to shoot blindly and hope you figure it out. Determine your shooting style, then select your choke, then select your shot size or your load. Doing any of that out of order is going to lead to a whole bunch of wasted time and wasted money going through ammo trying to figure out what exactly it is you should be running in your gun for your shooting style. Practice a little bit more. The only way to get better is to practice. Again, changing chokes isn't going to make you a better shooter. You're going to miss either by feet, not inches. And that's what your choke is gaining you. The only way to understand exactly what your choke is producing as far as a pattern at any given distance is to pattern it on paper with the load that that you plan on using, or go back to the approximations I listed earlier in the video, and just leave it at that. That's what I do. I hardly ever pattern a shotgun. I would only really recommend it on turkey, just because it's such a precise shot with a shotgun and all those BBs. You need to know exactly what that thing is doing at longer distances. Small target. So, if you guys have any questions or comments, feel like there's anything that I should have touched on that I may have missed in the video, things that may still remain unclear to you, drop it in the comments below. I will answer it as soon as you post it. I vow to be extremely good about doing that. I'm not saying I'm the best shooter in the world. I'm not saying I'm the most knowledgeable on guns, but there are certain things that I do understand and have knowledge on that I may be able to help you with, that I am comfortable talking to you about. Anything besides that, please don't forget to throw a big thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed it. Click subscribe, and then share it with your hunting buddies. If there's something in this video that you may have learned that you didn't know, or that you feel your friend may learn and they may improve their shooting game and their hunting experiences, share it with them, please. That's the whole purpose of this. If there's anything else that you guys want to know, more topics you want me to cover in another video, if I can do that, if it's something I'm comfortable telling you about, because I'm knowledgeable about it, I will. Drop it again in the comments below. Share with your friends. I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next one.